Okay. If anybody knocks on my door, I've already made that joke about the drug testers. Anyway. Still funny.
You might as well keep making that joke because apparently at least one fighter said, nope, come back in 6 hours. And they're like, no, we're putting this down as a drug test failure. You take it now or not at all. And you probably know who I'm talking about.
Does it rhyme with free as?
Yes, it does.
We'll get there in the news. Lots of news to get to. But we do have a huge UFC pay-per-view to talk about this week. It's the main story this week, and that is UFC 202, the rematch, Diaz versus McGregor.
That's right. Boy, Conor is working the media for all it's worth, trying to get everybody talking about him.
He took more shots at the WWE, and I'm thinking, you do have an opponent, he's right over there, that you might want to focus more on as opposed to pro wrestling these days. You know what I mean? Like, you got so much other stuff on your plate right now. Why pick a fight with pro wrestlers?
Or, I think more importantly, why should the pro wrestlers take the bait? Like, you get what I'm trying to say, right? It's like, They should know how this game works. They know the deal. They've done this for a living. They shouldn't be taking the bait because they already know how this works.
One of the comments that Conor said was aimed towards John Cena. Now, Cena, in my opinion, not one of my favorite fighters, or your wrestlers, I should say, but he called him a failed Mr. Olympia, and somebody took a picture of Cena in the weight room and basically took that quote, and at the bottom it says, someone want to tell Conor he's a failed welterweight?
Oh, ow, zing.
And I was like, that's a pretty good comeback. I wish you would have said that on Raw or something. That'd be awesome.
Hey,
or SmackDown now, sorry.
Did you hear the story about Bret Hart and Conor McGregor?
No.
Somebody that knows Bret and is also friends with Dave Meltzer was talking to Bret about the Conor McGregor story and him calling out wrestling and saying all these things about wrestlers. And so this mutual friend of theirs said to Bret, do you have any comment on Conor McGregor saying wrestlers are a bunch of pussies? And so Bret thought about it for a while, had a few good responses in mind, some clever comebacks and all sorts of things. And then finally, Bret just said, you know what? Leave me out of it. Like, he's the one who actually knows not to play this game with Conor. Like, he's been around people cutting promos on it for his whole life, and he knows better.
Well, I mean, Jericho was really the one that was smart on it.
Right.
I mean, everybody else is like saying, step in the ring. I mean, Flair really cut a promo on him, but then again, Flair will cut a promo on the mailman, so not really much to talk about there, but...
Yeah. Well, you might as well pat yourself on the back then, because the two people that handled this the best out of all of them were Bret Hart and Chris Jericho. Two Canadians through and through.
Absolutely. There is something about Conor McGregor that wasn't... We'll talk about this in the news, about another comment Dana White said, but there was one quote Dana White said in particular, and it relates to the main event here, and that is, after he's done here, he's going back down. So this is probably going to be Conor's last fight at welterweight.
I would think so. If he doesn't come back and defend the featherweight title, he's going to have to vacate it. So he can't keep doing these higher weight classes, whether it's 155 or 170, because, originally he was going to fight Rafael dos Anjos at 155, and the reason he ended up fighting Nate Diaz was because that fell apart when dos Anjos got injured. So he's got to keep his focus where it belongs, and that's on his own title, and not these higher weight classes up.
Well, Conor said he wants 2 belts.
You know what? After losing to Diaz the first time, I understand he wants to prove his point in a rematch, but seriously, that should show you that going up in weight is not the right idea. Getting 2 belts, not something most people are going to do.
Well, I mean, he would go back to 145, fight Aldo, and then if he wins there, which is still a big if in my opinion, because you can't really judge that fight based on the length of what happened.
Yeah, the first fight was 9 seconds. You can't judge anything on that.
No, but say he beats Aldo a second time. Fine, he retains the title. What's stopping him from facing Dos Anjos at 155? Title, champ for champ at 155.
Well, Dos Anjos isn't the champ anymore, so that's out the window right there.
Jeez, he'd fight Eddie Alvarez.
I don't know if he wants to stand there and go toe-to-toe with Eddie Alvarez. I don't think that's a wise idea.
That's a worse fight than Dos Anjos.
Neither one of them were a great idea, but honestly...
Well, I think he has a better shot against Dos Anjos than Alvarez, though.
Probably, especially the way Alvarez dismantled him, but I'm just saying neither one of them were necessarily great ideas to begin with. I always thought the one thing Conor truly had, besides his charisma, of course, was that he was such a powerful featherweight. He was so much stronger and faster than all the other featherweights, with the possible exception of Jose Aldo. But in any other weight class, those advantages are going to be diminished, and that's what we saw in the fight with Diaz, is even though they were relatively the same size, they were not relatively the same in terms of cardio and condition and overall durability at that weight.
So the main event is two 155ers at 170.
Yeah, go figure.
Okay. And another guy at 170 I'd like to see go back to 155. You know, it'd be really interesting to see Donald Cerrone go back to 155 and fight Conor.
Who?
Conor versus Donald Cerrone.
Don't think
Can you
that's going to
imagine the
happen.
promos? Can you imagine the promos?
Sure, I can imagine anything, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. I know, it's wishful thinking, but if that happened, the promos, if they did like a UFC, like a 4-part special like they're doing for CM Punk, I mean, geez, it's going to be amazing.
True.
But it won't, you're right, it probably never happens. It's establishing his niche at a 155 fighter who's actually doing well at 170. But, can't say the same for Conor, and when it comes to this fight, Stevie, I'm gonna say history repeats itself. I'm gonna go with Diaz again.
Are we just going to go ahead and break down the whole card right now? Because if so, I'll pull up the odds and we'll just really go ahead and get into it.
Well, yeah, let's break down this fight. I mean, McGregor Diaz, we saw what happened in the first one. It depends. I mean, Diaz has been relatively quiet for him. Like, usually he's a lot louder, but then again, the weigh-ins aren't until Friday, so maybe there'll be another incident, shoving match, if you will, or, whatever, but Diaz, compared to Conor's smack talk, Diaz is pretty quiet right now.
Yeah, well, maybe that's because he feels like he proved the point the last time, so he doesn't need to say anything. Like, what can he say that he didn't already say in the commercial that's advertising the fight? That commercial is pretty much perfect as is. He's like, well, you better hope it turns out that way. That's all. When you're Nate Diaz, what more do you need to say than that? You already beat him.
Dare say it's a mature Nate Diaz?
I don't know that I'll ever call anybody in the Diaz family mature in the way that you mean it there, but if you mean level-headed, he's always been the more level-headed of the two of them.
The more level-headed Diaz brother?
The one who doesn't seem to self-sabotage.
Okay, I can see where you're going with that, okay.
But as for the fight odds, I don't think it's as conclusive as either man would like, because the line I'm looking at right now says that Nate Diaz is plus 110, so he's a very small underdog according to this, and Conor, believe it or not, minus 130 as the favorite. But again, very, very small difference between underdog and favorite in this case.
Now, usually I would say wait till the weigh-ins. The odds will fluctuate between here and there. But these guys are going up a weight class. In Conor's case, 2 weight classes. So I don't think making weight will be an issue here.
No, it shouldn't be. Although, it's funny you say that because I think the line shifted in Conor's favor because of the rumors that Nate Diaz was walking around at over 200 pounds.
Yeah, but he said that last week. I mean, he's had a full week of training to cut down to. I would imagine Diaz right now is somewhere between 175 and at heaviest, maybe 190, maybe.
All right, well, let's think about something you said earlier in this show. I'm going to play rewind for our listeners. You said these are 2 guys from lower weight classes, one guy who normally fights at featherweight and won a title at featherweight, and one guy who normally fights at lightweight, fighting at 170. We know Conor can get down to featherweight because that was his bread and butter. And if you're a guy that size, should you really be walking around at 200 pounds? I mean, okay, if you're going to fight at lightweight, you'd probably want to be like 175, 180 at the most. And if you're fighting at featherweight, you probably want to be like 160, 165 at the most. I mean, once you're cutting more than 25 pounds, that's a problem.
The thing about Nate Diaz is that he's no spring chicken anymore. He's 31 years old, turned 31 in April. Maybe if your walk-around weight is 190, 200 pounds, maybe he's gonna transition to a full-time welterweight fighter now.
Maybe. I haven't heard him say that, but if he does, if that's official, they're gonna have to send us a bulletin and say, don't rank this guy in the lightweight class anymore. Adjust your rankings accordingly.
He has 2 victories against Conor if he wins this fight. And he's like, you know what? Maybe I'll stay at 170, see what happens here. There's some very intriguing fights, including Cerrone, at 170.
Okay, sure, but you're talking again about 2 guys who are getting all the way up to a much higher weight class than they're capable of fighting at.
Whereas, we're talking 15 pounds, though.
Let me finish, though.
All right.
The problem with being competitive when you move up in weight is all the other guys in the same weight class as you are cutting to make that weight. So you're going to be the small guy in a much bigger weight class. Look at what happened to Benson Henderson. Sure, he won a couple of fights at welterweight in UFC on his way out the door. Then he ran into Andrei Koreshkov and was probably thinking, hey, I was able to beat these other guys at welterweight. I can beat this guy in Bellator. And no, he did not. He did not even come close to beating Andrei Koreshkov. He was outsized, outmuscled, outgunned, outstruck, out everything.
Yeah, so it's big fish, small pond, big. Yeah, I have the argument. It's just Diaz might have that confidence.
I don't know if I want to stick around and take a pasting from the other guys at welterweight.
Well, then maybe you should stop walking around at 190.
Yeah, that might be a problem. And again, that might be why the line is so close right now, because a lot of people are probably thinking maybe Conor is actually going to be the better conditioned athlete, because last time the whole thing just turned out to be a whole bunch of flukes. Like, this wasn't the original opponent for McGregor, and Diaz wasn't even prepared to fight and took a very short camp and had to take it at a higher weight, which is how we got to 170 in the first place, remember, is that they couldn't agree to fight at 155, so it had to be at 170 because Nate didn't think he could make it in that short amount of time. Who can blame him? So, what we're looking at here is a situation that's never going to repeat itself, except it is going to repeat itself, only this time they're both aware of the situation and should have been fully prepared for it. So there's no reason for Nate Diaz to walk around 200 pounds when he knows that he's got a fight coming and has plenty of time to prepare for it. It's not like this is short notice. And Conor, who's been saying all along, I can win this fight if I'm better prepared than I was the first time, because I took him on short notice and I was preparing to face somebody else and I wasn't efficient with my energy because I was fighting at a higher weight and I got tired faster. Well, this time he's had a full camp to train for 170. He should be in condition to fight at 170. And if his weight is on point and Diaz is way up there in the rafters, then maybe Conor stands a much better chance this time around, because he was hurting Diaz when he struck him. Let's not forget that. He was doing a pretty good mangling of Nate Diaz's face early in the fight, but when he gassed out and it went to the ground, that's when he got submitted. So as long as he doesn't gas out, you know what? I actually think Conor McGregor is going to win this time.
So you think it's a red panty night for Conor?
Maybe. But let's not say with 100% certainty that Nate Diaz can't do it again, because all he needs is one good leg trip and take his back, and that could be a wrap.
All right. Well, let's go to the co-main event. Glover Teixeira against Anthony Rumble Johnson. I need the odds for this one because I'm still on the fence on it.
Rumble is minus 210. Glover is plus 175.
That's what I was thinking. I'm gonna go with Glover.
Really?
I think Glover, his power, I mean, anyone can get stopped any given moment. We've seen that time and time again. But Glover, when his power is on, when his striking is on point, like, I can't think of someone who could stop him. I mean, pinpoint accuracy when he wants to. When he wants to. The problem with Glover, you just don't know which one's going to show up. It's just, man, I'm not saying I've never been a fan of Rumble Johnson. I just, in this scenario, I gotta take Glover in this one.
I think it comes down to power. I think Rumble Johnson has one-punch finishing power, and anybody that gets hit is going a night-night. And Glover is a good striker, dare I say a great striker, but I don't think his power compares to Rumble's. I think if the two of them hit each other at exactly the same time, in exactly the same sweet spot, the one guy who's going down first is Glover every time.
So you're saying this fight won't go to the judges?
I would be very stunned if this went the full 15.
The only way this goes the full 15 if the fight was in Denver. All right, let's talk about Rick Story against Donald Cerrone.
Yeah, you seem to have a burning desire to talk about Donald Cerrone tonight, so yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about the fact that Cerrone is the favorite at minus 165. Horror Story is plus 145.
And Cerrone's coming off a fight like 2 months ago here in Ottawa. And Cote did his best, but, Cerrone is one of those quick turnaround fighters. He can, he didn't take that much damage. And, I would expect him not only to win this fight, Stevie, I can see him on the New York show.
That's pretty much how Donald Cerrone rolls. He's not happy if he's not fighting every couple months.
You gotta get paid, man.
Yeah, he wants those bonuses, and he wants that Budweiser money.
No Pabst Blue Ribbon for him.
Oh, I think he'd drink a PBR if you gave it to him.
Fair enough. Does Story have a chance here, or is this Donald's fight to lose?
Everybody has a chance, so what do you actually mean when you say that? Because, look, this is the year of upsets. You and I both know that, so you don't want to ever just phrase it like that. Does he have a chance? Because in 2016, everybody has a chance. Okay,
but are you picking him in this fight?
Well, let's look at quality of recent opponents as a determining factor. With Rick Story, he's got 3 straight wins. One of those 3 I consider pretty impressive. Gunnar Nelson, although that was a split decision, he didn't dominate that fight. Tarek Saffiedine used to be a bigger deal. I don't know if a win over him means as much as it used to, but I'll still give him some respect for that. And Leonardo Mafra, no disrespect to the dude, but who has he been and why do we care? I don't think anybody is raving about seeing a Leonardo Mafra fight, are you?
No.
No, exactly. So that's the recent opposition that Rick Story has put his win streak against, whereas we pretty much know what Donald Cerrone is doing. You just mentioned Patrick Cote. He also choked out Alex Oliveira. Yeah, he lost his rematch with Rafael Dos Anjos in pretty devastating fashion, but before that, just look at the unbelievable string of wins he put together. Benson Henderson, Miles Jury, Eddie Alvarez, Jim Miller, Edson Barboza. I could go on and on and on, but it's not like Donald Cerrone was beating chumps. So, considering the only guy that he lost to in that, last 10 fights that he's had is the former lightweight champion, I think quality of opponent tells you what you need to know about this fight. So, I'm not saying it can't happen because this is the year of upset, and I'm going to keep saying that until I'm sick of saying it, but I'm picking Cerrone.
But is this an upset with Story ranked number 9 and Cerrone at 14?
Well, with the odds makers saying that Cerrone is the favorite, it's not.
So if Cerrone wins this fight, how many spots do you bump him up in the rankings?
You know what? I'll tell you that once they send me the advisory, and they haven't sent it to me yet.
Is there a number they say you can move him up to this many positions, or?
It usually says something like, this guy can move up several places with a win, but he lost to this guy, so he's probably not going higher than that.
Okay, for those who are wondering who is in between Story and Cerrone in their rankings, 13 is Saffiedine, 12 is Matt Brown, 11 is Gunnar Nelson, and 10 is Dong Hyun Kim.
With Cerrone, he has the advantage of being in a higher weight class now, so you can't play the card of he lost to this guy, so don't move him above this guy. So pretty much.
No, but I'm thinking of the 4 guys I listed, is there any fight there that he would lose?
Well, let's put it this way. If he beats Rick Story and Rick Story beat Tarek Saffiedine, do the MMA math And I'm using
Yeah,
air
I know.
quotes when I say that.
Okay, but Cerrone against Matt Brown, Gunnar Nelson, or Dun Hung Kim. I think he wins all
Again,
those fights.
since we're talking about guys that Rick Story faced and beat, yeah, if Donald Cerrone beats Rick Story, then by law of MMA math transitive property, he would also beat Gunnar Nelson. I mean, that's just a given.
Although the fight against Dun Hung Kim would be very entertaining. And Matt Brown is just really pissed off all the time, so.
Yeah.
I'm not like underselling that, people. If you've ever like seen him in the cage, you know he's very pissed off.
Yeah, don't spit in the man's tobacco. That's you don't do it.
Cardinal sin.
Now I joke about the MMA math, but I'm definitely not joking when I say that.
What about Mike Perry and Hung Gu Lim?
Well, first question, and I expect you to have done the research on this because I haven't. Who the fuck is Mike Perry?
And people wonder why we have a explicit rating on iTunes.
Honestly, anybody watching this card is going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's sometimes when you have fights where, what was your old thing? If they don't have a profile in Wikipedia, they're not worth looking up or something like that?
I don't know if I put it exactly that way, but I probably said something more like, if they don't have a Wikipedia profile, then they're a late replacement or nobody cares.
He's 6-0. All 6 wins come by knockout. His last fight was for Battleground, Perry versus Mundell. He knocked out.
All right. Are you on
Mundell
SureDog?
in the second round at 4:10. Yeah.
I'm on SureDog now too, and 6 wins by knockout. I'll give him that. It's pretty impressive. Wait a minute. I might maybe know one of these guys. I'm gonna check his record. I think maybe he was on Ultimate Fighter or in UFC. Yeah, he was. John Manley. He lost a fight.
Okay.
He lost a fight to Neil Magny at UFC 157.
Okay, so he beat a guy with UFC experience.
Right, which is probably how he got on UFC's radar.
But that's a heck of a step up in competition, though.
Yeah. You ain't kidding. I mean, okay. 6 knockouts. That's impressive. Let's give him his props for that. But now he's going against a whole nother level of fight.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. What I was going to say was 6-0, great. If he goes to 7-0 via knockout, that's impressive. But it's the bright lights of the UFC. Your first time there, you might get the jitters, and the Ace, not Ace for Franklin, but the Ace, might take advantage of that. All right. What about Sabah Homasi against Tim Means? Yeah, we'll talk about somebody in substances in a little bit.
Yeah, we will. Actually, there are a couple of guys on this card we can talk about that with.
Yeah, you're right.
But
what are the odds on this one?
It's kind of funny though, because we talked about Cerrone, and that's who Means was supposed to fight before he got flagged by USADA.
And then it was overturned because he was able to prove it, which I'm glad they have an appeals process. That's why they do the due diligence. That's why these procedures are in place.
Well, there's somebody else on this card had the exact same problem, because Ning Guanzhou, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, apologies if I'm not, was scheduled for this card and got pulled from it because he tested positive for clenbuterol. And then they found out that the meat he was eating in China was basically so contaminated with clenbuterol that there was no way he couldn't have failed because he had ingested it just by eating normal food.
Now, isn't there I don't know, if you're going to a different country, do you not, I hate to say bring your own food, but you stick to what you know?
Probably a good idea.
Or bring enough, food, I don't know, 3 meals a day. I mean, you can't take that much room in a car or 2 cars. I don't know.
But if you're eating meat, that's not something you're going to pack in your suitcase, because that's going to spoil. I mean, come on.
Oh,
now.
yeah. No, I know, but you would stick to, I guess that would be a tricky situation. Maybe stick to pasta or something.
I guess, according to USADA, both Mexico and China are well known as places where the meats can be tainted. So if you're a fighter from either of those countries, you probably want to be very, very careful about where you source your meat. Like find an organic farm or something, because if you're going to take your fight career seriously, spend a couple extra bucks and get the good stuff.
Alright, so let's go back to Tim Means and Sabah Homasi. What are the odds on this one?
Minus 440 for the Dirty Bird, plus 350 for
Wow.
Homasi. Yeah, Means is a heavy, heavy favorite here.
I'm going to go with Means, but I'm going to say, damn, I hate to say this. I'm going to say 30-27 across the board.
I don't think this is out of the realm of possibility for an upset. This guy, he's facing, okay, we're going to agree that he's not necessarily on the UFC level, but he has fought in Strikeforce. He's had 3 fights in Bellator, and he won both of his fights in Titan FC by knockout. So let's just not write Sabah Homasi off completely. This is an American top team guy. This is a quality fighter.
Quality fighter, but the Dirty Bird, I mean, he's got plenty of experience. Well, I'm still going with Means on this one.
I will as well, mostly because of what he did to Doomsday Howard at Fight Night Namajunas Van Zant. That finish says to me that it's a bad night for Homasi.
You're gonna have a bad time.
Yes, as Sands would say in Undertale.
Alright, let's go on to the prelims that are on Fight Pass, starting at 6:30 Eastern. Neil Magny, oh, sorry, is that the right card? Oh, sorry, FS1 prelims. I already skipped ahead to the Fight Pass prelims for some reason, because I saw Neil Magny. I was like, why is he down on the card way down there? But I guess they want to have eyeballs on the prelims on Fight Pass.
True.
But let's go prelims on FS1, TSN up here in Canada. Main event, Cody Garbrandt against Takei Mizugaki.
Once again, we got one heavy favorite and one big dog. Minus 600 for Garbrandt, plus 450 Mizugaki.
Alright. Obviously, yeah, I'm not picking Mizugaki to win this one.
No love, no pun intended, since that's Cody Garbrandt's nickname.
Now, what about Raquel Pennington and Elizabeth Phillips?
Let's see. That's a little bit closer. Pennington is minus 260. Phillips is plus 220. I'm going to go with Pennington here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same on this one as well.
It's not a big time, like, she blows me away and I think she's just going to cream her. But I feel like Pennington is getting a little bit better over time. She's better than her record.
Alright, what about Chris Oliva against Artem Lobov?
Lobov is a very narrow favorite, minus 115, and Avila is also minus, so he's minus 105. That makes this a coin flip.
I'll go with Avila.
I don't have any compelling reason to do this other than he's friends with Conor McGregor, but I'll go with Lobov.
Okay. And a fight that could steal the show is Courtney Casey and Randa Marcos. The sarcasm just flew way under the radar on that one.
Yeah, it's not stealing any show. No.
Alright, who wins this one, O Prognosticator?
Well, the odds makers put Randa Marcos as a very minor favorite. I would favor just skipping this fight altogether, but I guess Marcos wins.
It's like shrug your shoulders, I guess. I mean, when it comes to the payday, she wouldn't sniff at the payday, that's for sure.
I can't be bothered to care about Randa Marcos at this point. No offense to her, but no.
You just done?
Her record has just been mediocre ever since the Ultimate Fighter finale. She lost a split decision to Jessica Penney. She beat Alshing Daly, and she lost to Kalakevich, who we all know what kind of an awesome fighter she is now, and beat Jocelyn Jones-Leibarger. It's like loss, win, whoop-de-shit.
Alright, on the prelims, the aforementioned Neil Magny is fighting Lorenz Larkin, which is a very interesting fight.
It's very close, too. Minus 140, plus 120. Now, guess who is who?
Magny's the favorite.
You are correct, sir.
Mm-hmm. That's why I put my money on this one.
I would, too, I guess.
Colby Covington versus Max Griffin and Alberto Uda versus Marvin Vittori round out the prelim card on Fight Pass.
Vittori is the favorite over Uda, and Covington is a heavy favorite over Griffin.
Doesn't surprise me there at all.